got a Sony SLVR1000 shipped in from Waterloo, Ontario, with loading problems, threading problems, alignment problems. So let's get into this one and see if we can solve those problems. This is the Sony SLVR1000. It was shipped in. It's probably going to have the classic blue gear problem and whatever else goes wrong with these. So before even plugging it in, let's pop off the top and do a visual inspection. The guide is all the way to the top, so it's going to have the blue gear problem for starters. P5 is not frozen on this one. Need some lubricant on the bearing, but for starters, we'll get to the blue gear first. So to do that, we need to pull the chassis. So first we have to remove the front loading mechanism. So once we remove the 4 screws, the mechanism will lift out. There's then 5 screws, I believe, that we need to remove. There's 2 on these brackets. So remove the screw and then the bracket comes off. There's another bracket in the front that needs to come off. There's 1 screw in the back that holds the chassis in place, plus a grounding screw to the head amp, and 1 screw over on the left corner that needs to come out. Also, we have to remove these 2 multi-connectors, and they're held down with tape. So we have to remove it's like a cloth tape. That's there to keep the connector seated during transportation. So just have to peel that tape off first, and then we can undo the connector. Those 2 connectors have to be undone, as does the full erase head, the audio control head, and the drum. So there's the chassis, and we just have to open up the bottom now and change out the gear. I can get rid of the main unit, as I don't need this here on the bench. This is the left threading gear, Sony part number 3-736-147-01. They're available in Canada here from KP Components. To prep the chassis, turn it over. And we need to remove the arrow mark screws from the circuit board so that we can access the chassis itself. lift the circuit board out. There's some plugs that will unplug from the mode switch and the capstan motor and so forth will unplug. Just like that. The other thing I just noticed was that the drum plug was already undone. I don't know whether that got caught. Sometimes when you remove the chassis, this drum cable, this is the connector that plugs in the drum motor. Normally that's plugged in like that. And it's looped around the back. Sometimes when you remove the chassis, this gets caught and pulled. So I don't know whether somebody had been into it or whether it actually just got caught when the unit was taken down or taken apart. Here's the broken blue gear that we're going to be changing, and it's lunchtime, so I'm going to go have my lunch, and then when I'm done lunch, we'll change this blue gear, clean the mode switch, and do all the other maintenance that this unit requires, which is not a lot. These ones were actually probably one of the more reliable chassis that Sony made. Sony made this one. This was a Sony built chassis. The later machines after this, Sony went and farmed it out and had other companies make it, but this one here is actually relatively reliable. Okay, we'll start on this one now. Lunch is over. 3 hours later. First thing we gotta check is to make sure that our alignment is correct on the timing before we start taking things apart. And how you do that is check the alignment holes. You'll notice that there are holes in the chassis where you can see timing marks for the various pieces of the mechanism. You'll see a timing mark here pointed at a hole. Right, there's a little arrow here pointing at a hole on that gear, and you'll see through here, you'll see a pin. This lines up with a hole directly below the chassis, and when these were put together in the factory, they actually had pins that would stick through from the other side. You can see the hole in the red gear. You see it? This one lines up with this slide plate, and on this main cam you've got these two pins that you can see through the hole in the gear here. So we know that the mechanism is correctly timed. We'll check this before taking it apart, because that's what we need to get it back to when we put it back together. To change the blue gear, we just have to remove the 3 cut washers. And remove the metal plate that holds the mechanism together. And now I can remove the cam gear. Now when I do this, we're going to lose timing of these 3, you see the 3 little levers here that fit into the gear. And you'll notice that there's a hole in this gear. Look, you can see right down through the chassis. So that's our correct timing state. So we're going to pull the gear off. When we do that, these 3 levers are going to move. We just have to move them back into position when we put it back together. Now I can take off the loading gear. I'm going to remove cut washer off of this loading arm. When I do that, I can now remove this cut washer, and I also have to remove this other one. Well, this one doesn't have a cut washer, but I have to turn this gear out of the way, otherwise it won't clear this other loading arm. So I can now lift this loading arm out of the way. The guide is going to drop out more than likely when I lift this off. And there's the loading arm I need to change the gear on. Have the new gear ready. And how it works is the spring is locked in behind this little catch, and it fits into the actual gear. So we have to release the broken gear, release that little catch. The little broken gear will now pull off. So there's the old gear. New gear goes on the same way. The spring fits into here. So I drop the spring, literally drop the spring, and drop the spring on, and fit it into that slot. As I like that, as I bring the new loading gear in place, I'm going to catch the spring in behind that cog right here, and then I just turn, and once it clears the gear I can snap it in place like that, and that's how it sits, and we're now locked in place. That's what gives the guide its tension. When it's loaded, when it pushes the guide forward, it brings it up like that and pushes it up. Now we need to reset the timing. To do that, I need to lift the other gear out of position so that I can fit this one into place. We'll lift this one up a bit, just so I can slide the other gear underneath and onto the mounting post, like that. Now I can retract the guides and place the guide back through. Take the guide from the bottom, which has now come loose. Put the guide back into the track. And replace the cut washer. Now my guides are, as you can see, the timing of them is. So now you'll see I've got the alignment correct. Both guides reach the top of their travel at the same time, and when we bring the guides back down, you'll see the timing marks will line up. So when the guide is fully retracted, this cutaway lines up with that hole right there. So if I push that screwdriver through there, that will go right through that hole, and at the same time there's another alignment hole underneath here. You see? Right there. So that's in the correct position. Both those holes are lined up. That is the correct position for the guides. When you extend the guides, gotta pull this out of the way. When you extend the guides, they'll reach the top of their travel about the same time, but these two do not line up when you're fully loaded. The aligned mechanism, or the timed mechanism, is these two lined up when the guides are fully retracted. That one and that one. Okay, now the main cam gear goes back on. When you put the main cam gear on, you're going to line up these three cogs. They go and fit into the grooves of the cam gear. You need to pull the guides back and then adjust this accordingly so that the timing is correct between the three of them. And we need to pull this guide in like this, or this adjustment, or this, I should say this, this lever. Once the three of them are lined up, the three levers will drop into position. Going to move this little pink lever. That will move that other pin over. And there we go. And whoops, we're not quite lined up. We're off by one little bit. Now we should have an alignment hole. You can see it through the chassis, through there, and these three are visible. So now we are lined up. Make sure that all the levers are in place, locked in place. We'll just put this cut washer back on here. I'm just checking the alignment of all of the other alignment holes. Cam gear is fully engaged and meshed. Now the plate will fit on and it will drop into place easily. With plenty of clearance, we can put the three cut washers back on to hold the plate in place. And that's it. The blue gear has been replaced. Next, we'll tackle the mode switch, which is over here. We can remove the toothed belt. Easiest way to do that is just to loosen off the screw. No need to remove it. The tension is set by the spring. That's the only reason the spring is there, is setting the tension initially, because once the tension is set, you tighten down the screw. Release the tension, belt comes off. Now we can remove the mode switch for cleaning. Again, take note that it is perfectly aligned. The timing mark here is pointing right at that little arrow. Remove the mode switch. Mode switch will release, and we need to open the mode switch up to clean it. So to open it up, just squeeze the little pins together here. The mode switch will open, and there it is. We get some cleaner and clean it up. I'm just using Deoxit D100, 100% solution. This cleaner is a good cleaner to use, and I just use the applicator tip just to lightly scratch the surface. This will break any surface tension. And then take my Q-tip or cotton swab and wipe down the contacts, cleaning out any gunge at the same time. As you can see, there was a fair bit of dirt corrosion. We'll do the same for the switch contacts. And now I'm going to put some more Deoxit onto the switch just to leave a residue behind. This will lubricate the switch and make sure that it stays clean for a long time. Give the contacts just a little bit of a retensioning. Put the switch back together and spin it several times to clean. Let's not forget these contacts on the back here. They do tend to get oxidated. Again, we can put some deoxit right onto the contacts. Give them a bit of a scratch with it. And then clean. Clean off all the oxidation. And once again, just a coating of deoxit to keep the contacts clean. And now we can reset the switch. Now remember, when we reset the switch, we have to find that alignment mark, the hole. There it is right there. And that is going to point towards the arrow on the gear over here. When we put the mode switch back on, we do have to move this lever, which is this one here on the front. It's got the pink lever on it. We're going to move this so that it drops into the slot on the bottom of the mode switch. So as we drop the mode switch into place, making sure that our timing is correct. That, and then just move that switch or lever over, and it will drop into place. See if it lifted up. If it lifted up, that gear will pop, you see? So we just have to pull this back into place so that it'll drop in. That way, that cam gear, when it turns, will move that brake lever. This is the brakes for the reels, the hubs. Our alignment is correct. There's our alignment hole. Timing mark facing at each other. And then put the two screws back in. Tighten down the retaining screw for the clutch drive. This is the taking out basically the clutch drive. This drives into the clutch. And now the chassis is ready to reassemble the circuit board onto. So we reattach the circuit board. Press it until you hear the plugs click. And then the 5 black screws. Okay, time to reinstall the deck into the cabinet. This one screw here, this is the chassis grounding screw, or one of them. It's a metal type screw as opposed to a plastic self-tapping screw. This is the bond between the head drum and the preamp. There's another grounding screw that grounds the chassis. That's that one that I'm putting in now. Now we have the two chassis tabs or clamps that go in place. One on the left side and one on the front. This is what holds this chassis into place. It was kind of like an afterthought. Some of them they use screws that went through the front, and you had to take the front circuit board off. On this design, no screws actually attach the chassis other than the one at the back. They use these two clamps to hold the chassis in place. It makes these ones actually quite simple to service. I'll now reattach the two power connectors that connect between the main board and the motor servo board, which is on the bottom of the chassis. They'll line the pins up, and then they just snap into place. Reconnect the full erase head and the audio control head wires. And the two black strips of tape that are stuck on the circuit board there, they'll be put back on to hold those power connectors in place. Now we'll reinstall the cassette basket and replace the 4 screws that holds the cassette basket in place, and then reattach the power connector to the loading motor on the cassette basket. I'm kind of shooting this video almost in real time, just so that for you following along at home, you'll see the actual process required to tear one of these machines down and reassemble it. They're not that difficult if you follow the procedures that I'm showing you. Anybody should be able to change this gear and service one of these mechanisms if you follow these steps exactly. Okay, the unit's ready to go. Power on. Let's see if it turns on. Looks like it's turning on to me. Will it load a tape? Yeah, beautiful picture. Looks like my TV shot, right? What did I forget? You guys see it? I forgot to plug the head in. Forgot to plug the flex cable into the preamp. That would explain why I don't have a picture. There. Now it's connected. Let's play a tape. course, we have to do our alignment, but I have a picture. I just don't have a good picture because our alignment is not correct. So let's hook the scope up and do the alignment. So we're going to fix that momentarily here. Let me get my scope hooked up. So the test points are on this connector at the back here. Pin 2, I have my trigger, and pin 3 is my RF. I just bent the pin over because I don't have a probe that will... My probe is broken, so I'm just using a test lead to connect onto the trigger point. But ground to the shield. Pin 3 is RF, pin 2 is the switch point. Test point 2, switch point. So now we have a nice stable image on the scope. An ugly one, but it will get nicer looking in a minute. So I'm just going to adjust the exit guide. That's the first one, which is the one on the right side of the drum. We'll start with that one. Turning it clockwise. Almost there. Okay, now we'll do the one on the left side. This is the entrance side now. Now, I'm just doing the rough alignment with this tape. I'll go to my color bar tape now that I've got the rough alignment is good. I will go over to my color bar tape because this tape was not recorded on a machine that I know is 100%. But my color bar tape, on the other hand, that was recorded on a machine that I had done the alignment on using a factory alignment tape. Turn down that noise, but I'm very close now. I'll show you guys. I'm just going to tweak it here and I'll show you guys the alignment once I'm done. So that is about as flat as I've been able to ever get that. Look at that, beautiful. There's one head and there's the other one beginning there. Excellent! That is pretty much perfect. And there's the machine playing my color bar tape. Looking good. Yeah, there's a couple of glitches on it. The tape's been played many, many times. We'll go back to the other tape here and let it play. One last thing I need to do on this is I'm going to lubricate the pinch arm tower gear. That was one that really needed to be done because it will the grease that's on there will get gummed up and eventually cause the pinch arm to stick and break. We'll check the capstan bearing. I don't see any signs that this one is bad. Normally you can push on them and if you hear them going then you know that it's getting worn, but it's not. It's solid. And this is the job that I couldn't do that alignment without this analog scope. I couldn't do it at all with this piece of junk digital scope. If we look at the digital scope, just for fun, let's see how bad this thing really is. I'm almost embarrassed to say that I spent good money to buy this piece of crap. But I'm not going to hook up the trigger on this. I'm just going to hook up there, just measure the RF, because you'll see it just looks like crap. It's terrible. You see what I mean? Like the resolution of this thing is just the way they sample. I mean, yeah, I know it's not synchronized and all. It's not. I haven't connected the. Maybe if I touch this other probe, synchronize, because I'm syncing on probe number 2. But there we go. Am I syncing? I don't even know if I'm syncing or not. But you catch the drift. It's when I first got the scope, I thought, when my other analog scope died, and I bought this thing, and as I say, I paid way too much money for it. I paid like $700 for this thing, and I mean, it has some functions. I use it for audio stuff, checking speed on tapes and stuff, because it has a frequency counter built in, and for looking at timed events for digital circuits, then yeah, it has its place. But looking at complex waveforms like the I pattern off a CD, or the RF from a video recorder or a DAT recorder, it just does not. It doesn't have the resolution. And I'm not saying that all digital scopes are bad, but this one here in particular just cannot look at video. Like if I tried to look at a video signal on this thing, like for example, if I put on my channel 2 probe and I just plug this, I have a patch cord, I have a BNC with an RCA plug on it. If I plug this into the video output on here, which is that one there, that's video output. There's the burst, right? It's not even stable, but that's the burst. Now if I take the same cord and I plug it into my other scope, now again I'll have to just sync it, but select, where are we here, and lock it to TV. So there's my video signal on an analog scope. That's looking at the vertical rate. And if I go to horizontal rate, oops, that's the lines that I'm on. AC coupling. Okay, there's my horizontal. I can adjust my hold off to clear that up a bit, but there's my sync, and let's look at sync. There we go. So there's my horizontal, right? As you can see, there's my video signal. If I were to put my color bar tape back in, so here's my color bar tape. And there we go. I can look at the field 1 or field 2, but this is in the bits. But there's my sync. There's my horizontal. So I got my color bars, and if I switch my rate down, I can look at vertical. sink level here, my trigger level. Knob's broken. I got this scope given to me, and the trigger level, the knob is snapped off, so it's hard to adjust. But anyway, it's there. I can trigger it. Go back to horizontal here, and there's my burst. Right? You can expand the burst. Take a look at it. But there's my one horizontal line on this scope. If I dare to try and look at that on the other one, okay, there I've triggered it on the horizontal sink. I can adjust my trigger level here, right? So I triggered on the horizontal sink, but as you can see, where's the rest of the information? There's a sync pulse, there's another sync pulse. This is one line, this is the next line. Where's the information? I'm seeing what the I'm seeing the white bar, I guess, or the gray bar. I think it's the white bar, maybe the gray bar. I don't even know which one I'm looking at there, but it looks like a joke. And if I go down to the vertical, okay, there's my vertical scanning. Absolute disaster. Yet they sell this crap to a lot of hobbyists. Buy these things. They wonder why they can't troubleshoot anything. You can't do it with one of these. This piece of it's a piece of sheet. Yeah, now you see you got me going on a rant about this Unity, and yeah, maybe they have some better ones. They actually will look at complex waveforms, analog waveforms, but these ones here, these cheap ones, say it wasn't cheap. It was, I think I paid $600 for it plus tax, so it was more like around $750 by the time all the taxes were paid. Useless. Totally useless. Anyway, that's my rant on that. Let's get back on this one and do the lubrication of the mechanism and get this one packed back up and on its way back. This one's got a long way to go. This one came to me from Ontario, from Waterloo, Ontario. So this one will be heading back home tomorrow, or as soon as he pays me. But got it, picked it up yesterday and got it fixed today. So it'll be on its way home tomorrow once I'm done with it. But before I'm done with it, I got to take this screw out here. Lift off the retainer. When I do that, I'm going to hold the tower gear down so that it doesn't lift up, as I don't want to knock the timing out. Lift out the retainer. Keep the tower gear in place. Holding the tower gear, lift the pinch arm off. Now I can clean. I've got the power off, by the way, so don't worry about me shorting something out. We're going to clean off the old grease here and apply some new Molykote, and that'll keep this one here going for a long time. Another pivot point that sometimes needs to be addressed is this P6 guide. It is not showing any sign of any deterioration, so there's no need to take that one off, because if you take it off, you got to realign it. No indication that that is in any way starting to get gummed up. If it was sticking at all, I would certainly take this apart and do it. But this one here is fine. Drop of oil right down there will keep it going for a long time. I'm going to clean up the pinch roller slide bearing just with a Q-tip with alcohol. Clean that out and then use the remainder to remove the old lubricant. Again, hold the tower gear so it doesn't lift. So if you accidentally hit it, you're gonna lift it, so you don't want to do that. Okay, that is now clean. I'm going to let the alcohol evaporate a bit, and then I will put some new moly coat. I'll put some around the edge of the tower gear here and on here, and that will lubricate that. Moly coat grease, just put a little bit into the bearing. We'll put a little bit more into the groove on the tower gear. And there, put some on here. Doesn't need to be much, because too much is worse than not enough. And once the pinch roller slides up and down that post a few times, it will work into the bearing and protect it. Okay, pinch roller back onto the tower. And once again, hold to keep the gears from turning. Drop the cover on and replace the screw. Then we soak up any excess lubricant, oil in other words, that's spilled. There we go. So that will keep the P6 guide running smoothly for the foreseeable future. Give the transport a cleaning. I'm choosing a piece of like photocopier printer paper soaked in isopropanol. Some will say they use coffee filters. It'll do the same thing. Not much dirt on there. Actually pretty clean. Clean the rest of the transport. Then we'll do a test recording and playback. So audio control head, audio side and the control head side, full erase head, clean the lower drum as well. And we move the heads out of the way when we're doing this so we don't touch the heads. Just clean the lower drum. Okay, lower drum's clean. Tape stabilizers are clean. And this head cleaning roller does not appear to be deteriorating at this point. Something to keep an eye on. These things will wear out and get dirty, but this one here actually seems to be relatively clean, so I'm not too worried about that one right now. I guess the next thing is we're going to just do a recording on here. We'll do a color bar recording. It's as good as any, and because I have my old camera just sitting beside me here on the bench, so it's a color bar generator. So we'll just patch in and do a recording of some color bars. Okay, so I'm going to make a recording. I've got sound coming off my MP3 player for music, and color bars. Counter reset. Got a backlight control. Turn the backlight right out, or low, or high. This is actually a fluorescent light on these ones. It's kind of cool. A lot of people think it's LEDs, but it's not. It's fluorescent tube in behind there. It's a cold cathode fluorescent. Overloading the camera a bit when it's on full brightness there. Okay, that's probably enough. Let's play these color bars back. We'll just rewind. I'll search back. There we go. About the only thing I use this old beat up camera for is one of my old cameras from back in the days when I was shooting on 3/4 inch. Old DXC 1800. Works good as a color bar generator. As you can see, it's working perfectly. Only last thing to do is to play back a NS VHS tape. Okay, let's take a look at a Super VHS tape. Turn off the sound. Playing a Super VHS tape perfectly. Yeah, that's noise. It was dark in there, and that wasn't a real good camera that I was using back in the day. That was an old PVS 350 Panasonic Super VHS full-size camera, but this was a dub because it's got hi-fi sound. Therefore, this is a second generation tape. Don't know where the original tape is. I probably still have that tape somewhere. Somewhere in my collection, I probably still have that source tape. But that was a dub that was made at the Vancouver Aquarium back in the 1980s. Say probably mid to late 80s, I would think. I think that was the PVS 350. You can tell by when it dissolves how the dissolve looks, because it will freeze and then slowly dissolve. The other camera that I had that would dissolve was the CCD V5000, and it did a different, it was more of a dither type dissolve, and it was faster. So the picture didn't freeze for quite as long, but all these ones they did a momentary freeze and then dissolve. And the Panasonic was a really slow dissolve. I'm pretty sure this was the Panasonic. If I let it play to the point where there is a dissolve. Oh yeah, you can see, well, you can see the camera, you can see my reflection. I'm sure that was the Panasonic camera that I was using. Anyway, this unit is playing perfect. Here's a Super VHS tape made from a laser disc in EP speed. As you can see, the EP quality is also very good. I gotta watch that I don't show more than a few seconds of this, otherwise we'll get a copyright hit. But as you can see, even the EP speed is pretty sharp. Back to the SP speed. Sharpness control is working. Turn down the sharpness, turn up the sharpness. Yep, picture looks good. Waveform looks perfect on this tape as well. As you can see, waveform is perfect. That about does it for this one. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the bell, and you'll be notified when I post a new video. Anyway, we'll catch you in the next one. Thanks for watching.